Are you serious? Are you serious? Well, we're very serious, and I'm going live at 7 p.m. Eastern, as I always do on Sunday Night Live, but I could not wait 2 hours to bring this out. So I'm going to do it now live. Now, Stephen Noon already did a live broadcast, maybe an hour, a little over an hour ago, brought out some very good points. I understand that Joe Rosenberg also did a live broadcast and brought out some other good points. Now, yesterday, you guys know, last night, I went live just minutes after the air raid by apparently Israel hitting the airport in Damascus. Now, and there's no doubt about it, it was a major strike. I saw the video, I saw the photos. There's no question. Israel bombed that military air base in Damascus, which is primarily been run basically by both Iranians and Syrian military personnel. Now, we all know that Russia has got 300,000 troops on the move and 2 complete naval fleets and 1,000 airplanes in an exercise that they began yesterday. But there seems to be more behind that war game than just games. It looks like Russia's playing for keep, and it looks like Israel is as well. Now, Syria is denying that Israel bombed their airport, their military airport there they're in Damascus. They tried to sell some story that there was a circuit breaker that caused a fire. No, that's not true. Now, there's also another man out there by the name of Amir who was reporting last night that President Bashar al-Assad's half-brother or his brother had been severely injured in the attack there in Damascus at that military Air Force base. I cannot find anybody to confirm that. I don't believe that happened. I don't believe that Assad's brother was injured. Could have been. I don't think so. It's just not where I think he would be in the first place on a Saturday night in Damascus at a military airport. I just don't see it. But it could be, and so we'll still leave that open for possibilities. But what we do know is that there has been a lot of activity between President Vladimir Putin of Russia and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. We know there's been a series of meetings dating back for the last 2 years between Netanyahu and Putin. Matter of fact, we know that Netanyahu made several trips to the Kremlin there in Moscow. What is it they were discussing? And will there be peace in the Middle East? And what is the plan? Well, we know that Israel has repeatedly said that Iran cannot stay in Syria, period. Cannot stay there. Certainly not the southern half of Syria. No way, no shape, no form. And Israel has not been shy about going into Syria and bombing in different locations where they believe there's ammunition depot or where they think there's sophisticated missiles that may be on the move, trying to smuggle them out of Syria into to Hezbollah there in southern Lebanon. And there's no question about that. But folks, let me tell you something right now. We have reports of a potential secret deal. Now, I've been hearing about a secret deal for some time, and I've not reported on it ever for fear that, I don't want to be wrong, and I could be wrong now, but I just didn't want to come out with the rumor mill. But this seems to be, now I'm seeing the activity. The secret deal is supposedly this. Syria will be divided in half, with Russia taking the northern half and all of those oil fields to the north, and Israel taking the southern half, protecting the Golan Heights border region and everything in the southern half of Syria, which would include Damascus. Now, the reason for this would be twofold, threefold, maybe even fourfold. First of all, in the north, Russia and Turkey hate each other. They've had wars for 1,000 years. And Vladimir Putin is not about to let Turkey stroll in at the last minute and take those oil fields up in the northern part of Syria. Not after Russia has invested a lot of blood and treasure in preserving Syria from falling into the hands of all kinds of different regimes that have tried, including ISIS. So Russia has put a lot of effort in protecting Bashar al-Assad and his government to try to barely keep it up while trying to help protect the oil wells. Now that ISIS has just about been destroyed by President Trump in the United States and the allies, Russia wants to seize the opportunity, and they're not going to let Turkey do it. That's the reason, I believe, for the movement of 300,000 troops, 1,000 planes, 2 complete naval fleets. All of it is to make sure that Turkey does not get any don't get a wild hair here and try to think they're going to take northern Syria. There is another area. Turkey also hates the Kurds up there in the north. But the United States is not going to let Turkey take the oil wells and take the land from the Kurds. We're not going to let it happen. We're going to let the Kurds keep their land. So even if Russia, in this secret deal, if Russia takes over northern Syria, they will not take over the area where the Kurds are. Kurds will keep their land and those oil wells that are up in that region, because most, if not all, of those oil companies up in the area where the Kurds are is controlled by U.S. Oil companies, okay? And that's part of the reason why Rex Tillerson was actually the Secretary of State. That's another question. That's another story. So the Kurds would stay in power in their area to protect their oil. Russia would take over northern Syria to protect the rest of the oil and to keep Turkey from coming in. The United States would bow out as long as the Kurds get to keep the oil there, because the oil there, the Kurds, is actually oil owned by U.S. Oil companies. And Israel would take southern Syria to protect their own interests, their own borders, and fulfill biblical prophecy, because it's the land of which was promised to Abraham includes southern Syria, part of southern Syria, and southern Lebanon for that matter, and part of the Sinai over in Egypt for that matter, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, we're talking about Syria. So the hook, somebody just put it down there. D-Man, I want to thank all you guys for dropping in. I know I'm 2 hours early. I had to. D-Man, great comment. The hooks are in the jaw. You are absolutely 150% correct. The hooks are in the jaw. It is Ezekiel 38 being set up. And folks, if it's too bad that Dr. Chuck Missler is not alive right now, because the interview I did with him in October of 2015, he said, I asked him what will be the next big biblical event that to watch for. He said Psalms 83 turning into Ezekiel 38. And folks, we are right there. Russia is on the move. The Iranians have already said they're after Israel. Now the hook's in the jaw of the Russians. They're not going to leave, guys. They've got too much invested. They're not going to leave. And Israel's got too much invested. They're not going to surrender the Golan Heights to Syria. They're not going to let Iran set up shop in southern Syria. They're just not going to do it. And the United States, they're not going to let Israel get overrun by the Russians, the Iranians, the Syrians, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or anybody else that thinks they're going to take a cheap shot at them. And the United States is not going to let the Kurds be taken out by Turkey. And so there's been a deal made in which this is because Trump wants out of it. Okay, Trump just says, look, protect Israel, protect the Kurds. We want to get out of this. We're tired of spending money here. We want to get our people out of there. And Russia's saying, that's fine. We won't go after the Kurds. We'll let Israel have the southern half. You can leave. We'll stick to the agreement. And so there's a lot going on here. Netanyahu's saying, I don't care if it's Turkey or Russia takes care of northern Syria, as long as it's not Iran, who hates our guts, and as long as it's not Turkey, who don't like us either. And also, you want to know why President Donald Trump is cutting off $300 million in military aid to Pakistan? Because Pakistan has been trying to work very close with Turkey. And Pakistan is still protecting some of these different terrorists. And look, we're just tired of giving them money and them always backstabbing. So that's going on there as well. Okay, and there's another thing going on. You want to know why Turkey's in such a bad mood at the United States? Do you want to know why Erdogan is having such a frustrating time with Trump? It's not because the two of them have big egos, although they do. No, it's because Trump has told Turkey, you don't get the oil fields in northern Syria. You don't get to take the Kurds and drive them past the other side of the Euphrates River, which is exactly what Erdogan said he was going to do. What Trump has said is you get to stay home in Turkey and you get to stay there and eat turkey, or if you will be a good boy. But you're not taking northern Syria and you're not taking over the Kurds, and you're sure not going to be doing the caliphate, taking out Israel. So that's kind of what's going on right now. There's been looks like a three-way deal between the United States, really, Russia and Israel. But the deals between Russia and Israel, it would be Russia and Israel that would divide Syria. Now, could this deal fall apart? Absolutely. Could they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction? Absolutely. You're right, Caruso. You are so right on that. If you study the Bible, it will end up in a conflict. If you read Ezekiel 38, the hooks in the jaw, it might look good on paper, but it won't end up good. There will be a battle. There will be a mega battle, because you're talking about the Fab Five. You're talking about Russia. You're talking about Turkey somehow getting involved. You're talking about the Iranians, and you're talking about Libya and Ethiopia. But before we get there, we may have to have Psalms 83. Now, later this week, I got some great interviews coming up this week, including Bill Salas. We've got him already booked for this week. What a good job Heidi did. She's way out ahead of everybody else. I mean, she's already setting up guests that we need to talk to about what's happening before it even happened. What? She does have prophetic insight as well, guys. And because of that, we'll have a great interview with Bill Salas. Now, there's a lot going on out there, and it could swing, and we know situations could shift. The sand could shift in so many directions. But what I'm telling you tonight is this is a secret deal. It is unconfirmed. I repeat, unconfirmed that a deal between Russia and Israel has been put together for the Holy Land. But this is what we're hearing, and what we're witnessing is this. Russia setting up all their troops and all their ships and all their planes to carry out the very thing I'm telling you. They're setting in the right spot. And number two, Israel has already went in and blowing up another air base, okay, as far as Damascus, inside Damascus. Now, as far as Amir is concerned, about did Assad's brother is he almost mortally wounded? Is he severely injured in this? We cannot confirm that. I know Stephen Ben-Nun can't get he talked about he can't confirm it either. I can't confirm it. Joe Rosenberg can't confirm it. Nobody in the mass media confirm it. But don't look to the American media, because they can't even tell you what's going on right now. I don't even know if they've ever. I think CNN finally talked about it like 14 hours later. So Amir may know, but we can't confirm that Amir's information is correct. And even if Amir's wrong, it's not Amir making up a story. It's just information he's getting. It could be true. We just can't confirm it yet. It may be right. It may be wrong. I don't think so, but it might be. So we'll wait and see how that shakes out. It would be very interesting if Israel went in and bombed the airport in Syria, in Damascus, and injured the brother of the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. It would be an insane situation. I just don't know why he would be there unless he was there to supervise the moving of some very sophisticated rockets that they were trying to smuggle over from Syria into Lebanon. you have to understand, folks, you're not that far away. When you're in Damascus, you're not that far from Lebanon or Israel, for that matter. It's really, really unbelievable. So anyway, we're going to keep an eye on all of this right now. There's no doubt about it. Now, I've had other information. Let me just say this. I've heard about this dividing of Syria for months. When I was last in Israel in May, I had off-the-record conversations with certain individuals who talked about this exact scenario in May. Now, I did some interviews with some people in Jerusalem on the record, and you can watch it whenever I post those interviews. I've been posting them on my television show. But I had an off-the-record conversation that we did not want to interview, didn't want to post that because it was in May of this year, and no need to bring it up. It's just a theory at that point. But the individual telling me about it does have significant information he gets, and a lot of times it comes to pass. So I was perked up and listening, but I never reported it. I never even brought it out as a rumor. But now tonight I am. After I heard that Stephen Ben-Hanun has already threw it out there. Now I will bring it up. And I'll bring it up because if I really wouldn't even then accept that Russia's moved all these troops. And since Russia's got 300,000 troops movement, 1,000 warplanes, 2 complete fleets, naval fleets, and they moved them into the area that would help carry out this plan. Now, whether that's what's going to happen now or not, I don't know. But we've got to keep a close eye on this because nobody moves 300,000 troops. You're exactly right, Michael. Pendengrass. You're exactly right. Nobody moves 300,000 troops for a drill. You move that. You know how much money it costs to move that many people and 1,000 planes and 2 naval fleets? So when you make those kinds of moves, you're going to war. Okay. When you're doing an exercise, you use 20,000 troops and you do exercises and play little war games. You don't move that many people unless you have an operation going into effect. And look for a false flag. And oh, by the way, don't forget about Ukraine in all of this, because the pro-Russian rebel Karchenko of the Ukraine. Now, he was the pro-Russian leader over in eastern Ukraine. He was killed Friday night in a bomb at a cafe. So that could be a false flag. I'm going to tell you why. Because that would make it, obviously blowing up Putin's man, because that guy's Putin's guy, believe me. Killing him would not set well with the Kremlin unless that gives the Kremlin an excuse to maybe also send some troops into eastern Ukraine, okay? So there could be a lot of things going on there. But it wasn't, what I'm trying to tell you, we're in the latter days. Now, here's something I want to show you real fast, and before I let you go, and I'll be back at 7 o'clock. If you go to Ezekiel 38, I just told you who the Fab Five nations were. Again, they are Russia, Iran, Turkey, Ethiopia, and Libya. Okay? And it tells you in verse 8, go to Ezekiel 38:8. Look at this. Because some people say, oh, Paul, why are you looking at Ezekiel 38? That already happened. Read it again. In Ezekiel 38:8, it says this: after many days thou shalt be visited for all of this. In the latter years, you might want to put a highlighter there. In the latter years, thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. When is this going to happen? In the latter years. But wait, there's more, I like to say. Go with me, same chapter, Ezekiel 38, go to verse 14. Let's read these 4 verses. Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, thus saith the Lord God, in that day when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, thou shalt not know it. And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee. Would you say 300,000 as many? All of them riding horses. Here comes the Here comes the cavalry, if you will. Here comes all of the equipment. A great company, would you say 300,000 is that? And a mighty army, I think that qualifies. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days. You might want to put a highlighter on that one. When? In the latter days. No, it has not happened yet. And I will bring thee against my land, and the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. I just want to show you that these are prophecies of the last days, not the past days. I'll be back with more current world events, and we are still trying to scour to find out from different sources of ours, as well as Stephen's doing it, and everybody is that covers current world events, and to find out, did President Assad's brother get injured in the attack by Israel on the Damascus? Now, let me just say this. You can't go by your mainstream, lamestream, fake news media. They'll print something and say Israel didn't do it. Or they'll print something and say it was not an attack, it was just a circuit breaker that blew, which is what the Syrian army is trying to say, which is the biggest joke in history. So you have to understand, you can't believe MSM. I'm sorry. We're going to do our best. I've known about this plan, Russia and Israel dividing Syria, since May, but I've never spoke a word of it because, look, that's just a rumor until I see action. It is possible that we're about ready to witness it. And there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense. One, it's prophetic. Two, drives Turkey back away from the oil wells. Three, America gets what they want, and that's Israel protected and the Kurds protected. Four, Assad gets to go live in Russia and be an eye doctor. Okay? He can go back and go live and be an eye doctor, and he doesn't have to deal with this anymore. So we'll find out. Let's find out what happens. We still don't know. Amir could be right. Okay? Amir might have gotten the information. If he did, it's a game changer. If Assad's brother's injured, if it's not right, well, we're not going to blame Amir because he's simply just trying his best to gather the information from the different sources that are out there. Let's keep an eye on it. Okay, I'll see you guys at 7 p.m. Eastern. I just did a Patreon video for those of you who want to know, who are members of our Patreon. Check it out. It is amazing information, and it's also prophecy alert as well. I'll be back with more in just a moment. Are you serious? Middle East getting crazy. Middle East getting crazy. "7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday Night Live.